Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That speaker strung together a lot of highfalutin words that gave the illusion that he was smart enough to understand the game. But I reflect and suggest that he was stupid enough to think that what he was saying was important. Words like truncated...
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Chair, I'm generally pretty comfortable with robust debate, but I'm not sure it's in order in this House. In fact, I'm absolutely certain it's not, for a member to call another member stupid.
Are you taking exception to that?
I am indeed, Mr. Chair.
Under Standing Order 116?
That's correct.
Personal reflection. I'll ask the member to withdraw that comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly didn't intend to...
No, I've ruled. John Hayes.
Chair, I withdraw and apologise, and I certainly didn't intend...
No.
I withdraw and apologise.
That's it.
Mr. Chair.
Continue.
But what this bill is about, and Part 3, is for this country to organise and to have the greatest contest that it has ever experienced in the whole period of New Zealand's existence. Mr. Chairman, Part 3 of the bill is quite critically important to allowing 48 rugby matches to take place in this country in 13 locations. We're trying to use Part 3 and the other clauses of this bill to create a Stadium New Zealand, a vision to help move this country forward, a vision set out and prescribed in Part 3 that will enable us to portray ourselves as a great country on the world stage. Mr. Chairman, Part 3 of this bill is going to help manage the 85,000 visitors to this country who hopefully will leave a lot of money behind to support all sorts of small businesses, homestays, taxi drivers, bus drivers, all those sort of people. On top of that, we are going to have a huge global television audience. That is what this bill is about. This bill and Part 3 is about creating New Zealand's greatest event ever. And instead of celebrating this, we're dealing with words like truncated, strung together words that sound important, but I can assure you that they're not. Big words. And the outcome of what we've seen in the House earlier this afternoon was just like trying to be Helen Kelly and hobbits. Part 3 of this bill is about trying to set up the underpinning of the greatest event that will occur in New Zealand in our lifetime, that has occurred in our history, and the opposition is trying to pull this apart with negative comments about Part 3 in this bill. Mr. Chairman, this legislation is going to move this country forward, and it is going to set up an authority to help do that. Mr. Chairman, this authority, which is being established in this bill, is going to be able to grant all sorts of applications for activities related to licensing, prescribing the use of land areas and other events where the World Rugby Cup is going to be involved. Mr. Chair, Clause 6 of Part 3 prescribes that it prescribes is a big word, but I draw your attention to the Act, and if you'd taken the trouble to read it, you'd find that prescribed is in the bill. For example, Section 6 of Part 3 of Clause 30 says the authority may prescribe any conditions that it considers appropriate, including, for example, conditions that apply to the activities, facilities or class of activity or facility for which the declaration relates. Great jargon. What we need to keep very firmly focused here is that this legislation will allow the greatest event to take place in this country that this country has ever seen. And Mr. Chairman, I think it's critically important that this legislation allows our country to show itself off in the world stage in a way that leaves it full of credit, that adds significantly to the economy, and portrays New Zealand as a very highly organiser of a world-class, brilliant event. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.